Welcome to our channel. Today we're exploring the life and untold truth of Suzanne Pleshette, a talented actress whose charm and grace lit up both stage and screen. Known for her iconic roles in The Birds and The Bob Newhart Show, Suzanne's life was as captivating as her performances. From her career triumphs to the personal tragedies she faced, her story is one of resilience, love, and dedication to her craft. Join us as we uncover the fascinating journey of Suzanne Pleshette, a Hollywood icon. Brooklyn, New York, January 31st, 1937. That's the day she arrived in this world, born to Geraldine Kaplan and Eugene Pleshette. Her parents were Jewish, both descended from immigrants who hailed from Russia and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so there was plenty of cultural richness to go around. Her mother, who performed under the stage name Geraldine Rivers, was a dancer and artist with a flair for theatricality. Meanwhile, her father worked as a stage manager for Paramount Theaters in Manhattan and Brooklyn, then later became a network executive. So you could say that show business was practically encoded in Suzanne's DNA right from the start. Growing up, Suzanne already had that natural knack for performance. This wasn't a kid who shied away from a spotlight. She attended Manhattan's High School of Performing Arts, a place famous for shaping talented young hopefuls into genuine stars. After graduating, she spent a semester at Syracuse University, decided that wasn't quite where she wanted to be, and transferred to Finch College. Her heart, though, clearly belonged to the theater. She eventually graduated from the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater under the tutelage of the legendary Sanford Meisner. Anyone who studied with Meisner learned a style of acting that emphasized living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, an approach that would serve Suzanne well throughout her entire career. When you look back at the early days of her life, it's amazing how quickly she leapt into show business. She was only 20 when she hit Broadway, making her debut in 1957 in Meyer Levin's play Compulsion. The story itself was adapted from Levin's novel based on the real-life Leopold and Loeb case, so it was already one of those dramatic, gripping stories that demanded strong actors, and Suzanne dove right in. Then came The Cold Wind and the Warm, a play by S.N. Berman, directed by Harold Clurman, which opened in New Haven in 1958. She continued to gain experience and build her stage credibility, working with people who recognized that behind her sardonic demeanor and famously sultry voice, there was a powerhouse performer who could handle comedy, drama, and everything in between. Around that time, she found herself nearly landing a major musical theater role, Louise in the original production of Gypsy. She was one of two finalists, but she eventually lost out to Sandra Church because Church was the better singer. Suzanne had the stronger acting chops, though, so that says a lot about how close she came. It's fun to imagine her in that role, her comedic timing, her stage presence. But that near miss didn't set her back in the slightest. In 1961, she stepped into the role of Anne Sullivan Macy in The Miracle Worker, succeeding Anne Bancroft, and took on the challenge of acting opposite 14-year-old Patty Duke's Helen Keller. That was a pivotal moment for Suzanne because the role demanded intensity and compassion, and she showed plenty of both. By the end of the 1950s, she was starting to make a name for herself in film too. Her first screen credit was in Jerry Lewis's 1958 comedy, The Geisha Boy. Then she caught attention in Rome Adventure, 1962, also known in some markets as Lovers Must Learn. This romantic drama had her starring alongside Troy Donahue, who would quite infamously become her first husband in 1964, but more on that later, and other Hollywood names. Suzanne shined in that role, proving that she wasn't just a stage actress. She could hold her own on the silver screen. Of course, if you're talking about her early film career, you can't skip over Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. 1963. That horror thriller is a classic that still unnerves audiences today with its eerie scenes of avian attacks. In the film, Suzanne played Annie Hayworth, a character who was overshadowed in the story by Tippi Hedren's Melanie Daniels, but who still left a big impression on audiences. Many film buffs remember how skillfully Suzanne infused Annie with a quiet longing, an unspoken backstory, and that signature sardonic quality critics often mentioned. Hitchcock certainly had an eye for strong female talent, and he definitely saw something special in Suzanne. Immediately after wrapping The Birds, she went on to star in 40 Pounds of Trouble, 1962, a comedy co-starring Tony Curtis and Phil Silvers, though the release timing was such that audiences saw 40 Pounds of Trouble first, then The Birds. 40 Pounds of Trouble is notable for being the first movie shot at Disneyland, a whimsical place to film a family-friendly movie. Tony Curtis, who also produced it, capitalized on Suzanne's fresh-faced charm and comedic instincts, pairing her well with icons like Silvers. Over the next few years, she kept showing up in a string of diverse movies. Fate is the Hunter, 1964. A Distant Trumpet, 1964. Nevada Smith, 1966. Opposite Steve McQueen, Young Blood Hawk, 1964. And the comedic travel romp If It's Tuesday, This Must Be Belgium, 1969, for which she was nominated for a Laurel Award. She also co-starred with James Garner in Mr. Budwing, 1966, and a few years later, Support Your Local Gunfighter, 1971, a comedic western that built on Garner's easygoing charm and Suzanne's quick wit. Meanwhile, TV was a whole other playground for her talents. She jumped into her very first television role in a 1957 episode of Harbor Master, a CBS adventure drama series. Other early appearances included Playhouse 90, Decoy, Have Gun Will Travel, One Step Beyond, Riverboat, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Tab Hunter Show, Channing, Ben Casey, Naked City, Gunsmoke, Wagon Train, The Wild Wild West Pilot, and Dr. Kildare. That last one led to her first Emmy nomination. It's not surprising she was recognized. Even in guest spots, she had that distinct voice and comedic spark that stood out. Throughout the 1960s, she did multiple guest roles in hits like Route 66, The Fugitive, The Invaders, The FBI, Columbo, and The Name of the Game. She was also on a couple of game shows in the 1970s, including It Takes Two with her husband at the time, and Name Droppers, so she was never far from people's living rooms. But let's be honest, for many fans, Suzanne will forever be linked to her role as Emily Hartley on The Bob Newhart Show, which aired on CBS from 1972 to 1978. How did she land it? Well, the story goes that TV producers saw her chatting with Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show in May 1971 and noticed a certain chemistry. They thought, hey, let's see how that dynamic might work with Bob Newhart. And it worked brilliantly. Emily Hartley became one of the most memorable TV wives of that era. Suzanne had impeccable comedic timing and this wonderfully grounded presence that balanced Newhart's deadpan style. Week after week, she made the audience laugh with her straightforward, slightly sardonic approach to the comedic chaos unfolding around Bob's character. She landed 2 Primetime Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Lead Actress in a comedy series for that role, and people still talk about how perfect she was in that show's comedic universe. Of course, that final scene in Newhart's subsequent series, Newhart, the one that aired from 1982 to 1990, is the stuff of TV legend. In that famous ending, Bob wakes up next to Suzanne's Emily Hartley, revealing that the entire Newhart Show was just a dream. Audiences went wild over that cameo because it was so unexpected and so perfectly meta for television back then. It's a testament to the affection viewers had for Suzanne's character and for Suzanne herself. During the 1970s, she also stayed busy in family-oriented films from Walt Disney Productions. A big one was The Shaggy DA, 1976, a comedic sequel of sorts to The Shaggy Dog. She acted alongside Dean Jones and Tim Conway, bringing warmth and humor to the light-hearted Disney universe. Later on, she starred in comedies like Hot Stuff, 1979, with Dom DeLuise and Ossie Davis, and she was alongside the immortal George Burns in Oh God, Book 2, 1980. You can see that comedic roles kept calling to her. People gravitated to that witty, no-nonsense energy she radiated. By 1984, she tried headlining her own sitcom, Suzanne Pleshette is Maggie Briggs, but unfortunately, it lasted only 7 episodes. A few years later, she did the drama route again in Nightingales, 1989, playing Christine Broderick, although that show also ended after 1 season. Then came Leona Helmsley, The Queen of Mean, 1990, where Suzanne took on the lead role. That performance earned her Emmy and Golden Globe nominations. Critics saw how she balanced the campy angle of a socialite villainess with moments of genuine emotion, and it was exactly the kind of role that showcased her range. She could make you laugh, and she could portray a powerful, sometimes intimidating personality with equal finesse. She found her way back to sitcoms in The Boys Are Back, 1994, appearing opposite Hal Linden, and then she showed up in Season 1 of Good Morning Miami, playing Mark Feuerstein's grandmother, Claire Arnold, in the early 2000s. Another fun cameo was in 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter, where she played the mother of Katie Sagal's character after John Ritter's tragic passing. Those appearances reminded viewers that Suzanne was just as sharp and charismatic as ever. On top of that, she did voice work, and with that husky timbre, who wouldn't want her for animated roles? She voiced Zira in The Lion King to Simba's Pride, 1998, even singing My Lullaby, which was no small task. In Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away, she provided the English dub voices for Yubaba and Zeniba, 2 unforgettable characters who further proved that Suzanne's acting gifts extended well beyond traditional on-screen roles. Now let me fill you in on some personal details because her off-screen life was almost as interesting as her on-screen one. Her oldest friend was apparently actress Madeleine Roux, known for appearances on various TV shows through the 60s and 70s. There's also footage from 1965 of Suzanne in Roddy McDowall's Home Movies, taken at the beach, which gives you a nice slice-of-life glimpse of her off-duty. She was someone who easily connected with people. She forged real friendships in a business that can sometimes feel shallow. She first married Troy Donahue, her co-star in Rome Adventure and A Distant Trumpet in 1964. That union famously lasted about 6 months, so it was short and certainly not sweet enough to endure. Then, in 1968, she married Thomas Joseph Gallagher III, known to friends as Tommy. He was an oilman from Galveston, Texas, who had beaten lung cancer but unfortunately later passed away from an E. coli infection in January 2000. Suzanne and Tommy were married for over 3 decades, which is a long time by Hollywood standards, but they had no children, mainly because Suzanne experienced a miscarriage during that marriage. She once said that she had enough nurturing instincts to go around on every set she worked on, and she had a large extended family of colleagues and friends. So it seemed she made her peace with not having children of her own. Then there was Tom Poston, who had once co-starred with her in the Broadway comedy Golden Fleecing, 1959, and popped up on The Bob Newhart Show in a recurring guest role in the 1970s. They had a brief romantic involvement way back in 1959, but each went their separate ways, married different people, and lived their lives. Then, in a very Hollywood twist of fate, both became widowed, reunited, and ended up marrying in 2001. Suzanne and Tom were about as sweet and devoted as any pair you could imagine, staying together until Tom passed away on April 30th, 2007, from respiratory failure. It's poignant that Suzanne's last public appearance was with the cast of the Bob Newhart Show for a 35th anniversary reunion on September 5th, 2007, at the Paley Center for Media in Beverly Hills. Sadly, Suzanne died just a few months later, on January 19, 2008, in her Los Angeles home, succumbing to respiratory failure brought on by lung cancer. She'd been diagnosed in 2006 and initially seemed optimistic, telling people that the cancer was the size of a grain of sand and that she was undergoing chemotherapy. She even showed up at the Bob Newhart Show reunion in a wheelchair, insisting to people that she was cancer-free, though it was clear her health had taken a severe turn. She was laid to rest in the Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California, near Tom Poston and also near Gallagher, her second husband. As a posthumous honor, Suzanne got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on January 31st, 2008, her birthday. It was the walk's 2,355th star, placed at her request in front of Fredericks of Hollywood. Bob Newhart, R.T. Johnson, and Marsha Wallace all spoke at that unveiling, which had been planned before her death, and Tina Sinatra accepted the star on Suzanne's behalf. Even though Suzanne was no longer physically there to bask in that tribute, the moment celebrated everything she'd brought to show business: comedic genius, dramatic talent, a voice like no other, and an overall flair for entertaining millions of fans over the decades. Now, if we take a step back and really look at her legacy, it's evident that Suzanne Pleshette was a multifaceted performer. She came up through the theater, paying her dues on stage before leaping onto film and television. She had that husky, slightly smoky voice that set her apart from a lot of her contemporaries, along with a gift for delivering lines in a way that felt honest but playful. A Hollywood journalist once described her look and demeanor as sardonic, and that word kept popping up in reviews. Yet there was also an undeniable warmth about her. So while sardonic captures a particular glint in her eye, it doesn't quite capture how beloved and approachable she was on screen. Her talent for comedic timing especially shone in the Bob Newhart Show. That sitcom was part of a golden era of CBS programming in the 1970s, alongside hits like All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and MASH. Saturday nights were jam-packed with comedic brilliance, and Suzanne was right there at the center of it with Bob Newhart, Bill Daly, Marsha Wallace, and Peter Boners. She knew exactly how to keep scenes afloat with a quip, a raised eyebrow, or a pointed retort that balanced Newhart's deadpan persona. You watch episodes today and it's still hilarious. Comedy from that era can sometimes feel dated, but the interplay between Bob and Suzanne has a timeless quality because they felt like real people. A psychologist and a teacher living a modest life in Chicago, navigating everyday issues with wry humor and genuine affection. Outside of comedic roles, she tackled drama and thrillers too. In The Birds, she had to show terror and resilience in the face of flocks of vicious birds. No easy feat, especially when directed by someone as exacting as Alfred Hitchcock. In Leona Helmsley, the Queen of Mean, she portrayed an utterly different character, a tough, sometimes vicious hotel magnate with a notorious mean streak, and critics praised her for channeling all that flamboyant arrogance while retaining a human core. One minute she's making us laugh, the next minute she's giving us insight into a ruthless businesswoman. And we can't forget her voice performances in animation. playing Yubaba and Zaniba in Spirited Away, introduced her talent to a new generation who might not have been around for her earlier film and TV roles. Watching that film, you can practically hear Suzanne relishing every line, switching between Yubaba's stern commands and Zaniba's gentler warmth. Her personal warmth came through in interviews. She was known for her forthright manner. She didn't mince words, but she came across as down-to-earth rather than standoffish. She'd crack jokes about her own career, talk about the ups and downs of showbiz, and discuss the challenges of typecasting. She'd also mention the influences of teachers like Sanford Meisner, whose methods centered on responding genuinely to your scene partner. That approach is likely what made her comedic banter with Bob Newhart feel organic, or her scenes in The Birds feel so nuanced. Even when the premise was pure horror fantasy, Suzanne apparently wrote poems and even tried her hand at screenwriting under a pen name, though she kept that aspect of her life fairly private. She also co-designed bedsheets with a friend, Harriet Rosalind Dolan Stewart, for J.P. Stevens and Comer between 1969 and 1980. Hardly the typical side project you'd associate with a Hollywood actress. But that was Suzanne, full of little surprises, always exploring new facets of creativity. Her cousin John Pleshette is also an actor, known for roles in TV shows like Knots Landing. It's interesting to note that the Pleshette family produced more than one professional performer, although Suzanne was by far the better known of the two. She always made sure to credit her parents for encouraging her to pursue her artistic passions. Her father's involvement in theatrical management and her mother's dancing background certainly gave her a vantage point most aspiring performers didn't have. Being a young Jewish actress from Brooklyn trying to break into Broadway, then into Hollywood, she would have faced a variety of challenges. Casting directors sometimes typecast Jewish actresses in stereotypical roles, or they tried to push them to change their names, lighten their hair, or adjust their accent. Suzanne stood firm. She didn't adopt a stage name. She didn't hide who she was, and she let her unique persona shape her roles. That confidence helped her navigate a male-dominated industry that often relegated women to girlfriend or wife parts without much depth. But Suzanne demanded better, and she found her niche in no-nonsense, comedic roles, and in strong dramatic parts that let her stretch her capabilities. The awards and nominations she collected, 3 Emmy nods, 2 Golden Globe nods, plus the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, are a testament to the respect she earned from the industry. Suzanne Plechette's life was a testament to talent, perseverance, and grace. Her unforgettable performances and her unwavering strength in the face of personal loss continue to inspire fans around the world. Though her time was cut short, her legacy lives on through her work and the love she shared with those closest to her. If you enjoyed this tribute to Suzanne Pleshette, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about Hollywood's most beloved stars. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.